the legend in the mind of one, the Jason Fitz Show!
Man, you know, I struggle to know the right way to start this show because I struggle to find a way to express how freaking excited I am to be right here, right now, with you. I'm back for a second season to talk football. I can't thank you enough for everybody that stuck with the first season and that gave me so much support, and it's why we've blown this thing up to be huge for season 2, and it all starts today, right here. 3 shows a week, all football. Wednesday, it's the show you're used to. It's my insights. It's funny content. It's stuff that's going to make you laugh, hopefully make you think. And every once in a while, we're going to blow your mind with a crazy, amazing interview like today, coming out of the gates with ESPN's John Clayton. Then, Friday, we're going to bring you college football. When you're ready to give up for the week and you just don't want to listen to the boss anymore, put your headphones in, sit at your desk, listen to our quick hit, because we're bringing in a coach that has national title experience. We're bringing in guests that know these teams that you root for, and we're going to talk college football quick hits and get you into the weekend. And then Sunday's not about listening to ESPN yell about nothing. No, Sunday's about coming here, because here is going to be beat writers for teams that actually know what's going on. You're going to get the insight to the teams that you root for, the teams that you love, and it's all going to happen here. JasonFitz.com, Facebook, Twitter. Come here 3 days a week for the Jason Fitz Show. We're brought to you by LittleTeammates.com in a crazy cool way with a coupon code for the first time ever. Do it now. Go to your computer, LILTeammates.com. 20% off for anything you buy. What's crazy about that? Every little teammate you buy, these sports toys are awesome, and every little teammate you buy is going to get you entered to win a violin signed by everybody in the Band Perry camp. Think of those helmets that are signed by every player in the team. That's what we're doing for you on the music side. I know a lot of you are here because you follow my music career. I want to thank you in the only way I know how. So we're going to do a violin signed by every crew guy, every band guy, the Perrys. It's all going to be signed, and your chance to win comes one way. It comes from going to LILTeammates, LittleTeammates.com. You enter your order, and you enter the coupon code FITZFANS. Every single little teammate you buy gets you an entry in to win. Stick with us. John Clayton's coming up. My insights are coming up. I can't thank you enough for being here. This is going to be an amazing season, and we're all going to live it together. You're listening to The Jason Fitz Show, brought to you by LittleTeammates.com. After these messages, we'll be right back.
American Apparel is not just a store.
It's a place to make new friends.
My favorite bars serve PBR.
You've never heard of my favorite band.
And if you have,
They're not my favorite band anymore. And
I have herpes.
There's a soulmate site for me.
From the people that brought us farmersonly.com.
The answer I've been wishing for is at www.hipsterswithherpes.com.
Find your dream date.
Show up in your skinny jorts and deep V t-shirt. Make a love connection in a place no one family would ever feel safe.
Find your soulmate at www.hipsterswithherpes.com.
So I had a rare day home, and in driving around was listening to 104.5 The Zone in Nashville, Tennessee. And it was kind of amazing because they were playing some excerpts of some super fans of University of Georgia and how upset one fan was in particular with the loss to Clemson. It got me to thinking about football and fans. And there's one thing that we all have in common, whether you're a college guy or a pro guy, whether you like the Titans or the Colts or the Chiefs or the Raiders, it doesn't matter. One thing we all have in common is when you get to the level that you're at, where you're listening to sports talk radio, where you're driving around and you're listening to people just yell about sports all day, that means you have reached the level of super fan. And in looking at super fans, I've decided that there are actually seasons in the year of the fan. It's the seasons of fandom. And in looking looking at it, I was looking at the psychologists study the stages of grief and all of these different things that you can look at and you can see where people go through things in stages. Well, fandom is the same exact thing. See, the beginning of the year in January, we all have that season of reflection. It's the end of the year. Honesty sets in. The season's ended for many football fans, and you're looking at your team honestly, and you're looking at it and you're saying, man, we stink. And you're looking at it through real eyes because you just endured an entire season of the level of suck that your team is. So in that moment, you can't deny it. It has to set in. Well, it lasts for a little while, but then comes the next season. I'm going to call this the season of hope. It's free agency. It's the draft. Suddenly your bench warmers are going to get better. Everybody from your twos is going to step up. They're going to be ones. And these guys that are 5th round draft picks are going to turn out to be gems, and undrafted free agents are going to rule the field. And you have this season of hope. Everything looks like it's on the up. And it's amazing because I know as a Raiders fan, I mean, I'm the first to admit in January, I realize how bad the Raiders are. But by the time the draft comes around, you think, man, well, if we hit on one or two of these transactions and if the draft goes okay, we might field a decent team. It happens to all of us. And then it's followed by the season. We're going to call this the season of suspended belief. It's preseason. Preseason football has started. Your scrimmages have started for your practices for your college guys. It's either tremendously insightful or it's completely meaningless, depending on how you need to justify that your team is on the rise. See, if your team is horrible and they look awful in preseason, you just automatically come back with the one argument nobody can battle. You say, it's just preseason. It doesn't count. If your team looks awesome, you turn around and you're like, yeah, but check it out. 3-1 in the preseason, 4-0 in the preseason. We're going to make noise. It's the season of suspended belief. You've gone through reflection. You've gone through hope. Now it's suspended belief. And all of that leads to the first week of the season. This is the best season. This is the one that keeps us coming back to football every single year. We're going to call it the season of heart. And that's what the Georgia guy has. I laughed. I laughed when I was listening on the radio to a grown man weeping as he called into a college football station because his team didn't play well over the week. He was weeping, and I laughed. But then I got to thinking about it. You know what? He's in the season of heart. Of course he's weeping. His heart is broken because he's having the realization that maybe he's not going to be the fan of the super team he thought he was. All of this takes you through, and then the season starts. Then this is the nasty one. Then we hit the nasty season. We're going to call it the season of blame. Because God knows somebody's got to be blamed for the fact that this team has not lived up to your expectations. So you got to have somebody to blame. This is when it starts with, well, the quarterback sucks. This guy's overpaid. This free agent was terrible. The coach stinks. The GM stinks. The owner stinks. The city stinks. Whoever stinks, whoever you have to blame for the season is what happens. And all of that blame, eventually you get through the blame of the season, and a week after the season ends, you slump into your couch, and all of a sudden you realize you're in the season of reflection. Honesty setting back in. So to all of you out there, I say happy season of heart. May the season of heart last as long as possible so that you can watch your team dominate. You're listening to the Jason Fitz Show, brought to you by LittleTeammates.com. Don't forget LILTeammates.com. Go use the coupon code FITZFANS to get 20% off and get entered to win a signed violin.
Hey, football fans, nobody tells a fat guy to sit down at the stadium. Nobody tells a fat guy he's had enough beer. And everybody laughs at a fat guy's jokes, no matter how stupid they are. It's time to join the Super Fat Super Fan Cool Club and get your belly buddy today. Simply strap on one of our realistic, super stretchy belly buddy super stomachs, and you're destined to make the highlight reel. But wait! Belly Buddy is now doing group discounts. Join in with your friends and spell out Legend Fan status quotes with our pre-painted team lettering designs. You can finally say Broncos suck without worrying about any drunken stomach painting spelling errors. Remember, if you want to get on the Jumbotron, you've got to get your jumbo on with your belly buddy. Belly buddy. Yeah, yeah. Belly buddy.
Boom, 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 boom.
Beautiful sounds of Slayer. can mean only one thing. When I launched this show late last season, I had some hopes, some dreams, things I thought would happen as the show progressed. I never could have imagined that coming into the first episode of this season, we would land this sort of a national profile guest. You've seen him for years on ESPN. If you're like me, you essentially grew up watching Inside the Huddle. He's one of the foremost insiders in all the football land and star of arguably the greatest ESPN commercial of all time. I'm incredibly honored to have him. Welcome Pro Football Hall of Fame writer John Clayton to the Jason Fitz Show. John, thanks for spending some time with us.
Jason, good to be with you.
All right, believe me, we are going to talk football, John, but I got to start with the commercial. I know it's a hot topic for you, and I know everybody asks you about it, but the real question is, did you at least get to keep the ponytail wig? Can you reenact that moment whenever you want?
I cannot. They took the wig that night. The only thing I was able to get was the Slayer shirt, which I treasure, but unfortunately not able to keep the wig, so I don't get to keep the hair, unfortunately. That went back to wardrobe.
Well, now, the Slayer thing, that's kind of interesting to me because I read an interview with the New York Times where you mentioned that people would be really surprised to find out that you follow several rappers on Twitter, social media. And I saw another interview casually mentioned that you listen to a lot of funk. So where did the Slayer decision come from?
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, you got to love Slayer and you got to love metal music, you got to love rock, you got to love all those different things too. But, I grew up in Braddock, PA, and so I grew up kind of listening to more funk and rhythm and blues and stuff like that. And so that's kind of like into my soul. But, of course, the great part is you can expand your music taste, love Slayer, love Megadeth, all the different ones like that. So, my heart is into funk and soul, but I certainly love what Slayer does.
Now, for all the humor behind the commercial, it does bring up an interesting point. In today's social media world, what's being reported is almost as important as the personality of the person that is reporting it. Is there a moment that it kind of sunk in where you realize that you're more than just a football reporter to a generation of fans and that your job is actually so much more than just the football you're reporting?
Internally, no. I think that in reality, yeah, because, one of the things that I've been very fortunate in doing and covering for so long is kind of, being quiet behind the scenes. I mean, I try to be as professional as I can, as quiet as I can, kind of keep a very low profile, don't try to really get out much. But what's fascinating is that, you're on TV every day and people recognize you, and that's a great thing. And so now you go around and it's amazing at different spots. People want to take pictures with you and get autographs. And before initially I was a little uncomfortable with that because I'm thinking, why would you really want this? But apparently it's something that people do treasure, and it's something that I value as far as just the interest is there. And so you just kind of roll with it, have a good time with it. And I've been very fortunate to have a career like this. I mean, ultimately when I got into this business, I was hoping to be a writer who was covering pro football, presumably on a team, and then have the bonus of maybe doing a talk radio show. And look how fortunate I've been able to do in adding television to the element. It's been a blast.
Well, for all the things that shine through about your personality and what you do, it's your work in covering the entire league that continues to draw fans to you. In an interview with Ed Sherman last year, you mentioned you go to a live game every Sunday because the game changes a certain degree every 3 or 4 weeks. I'm really wondering how. What are you seeing that changes every month in the season?
Just strategies, how everybody tries to adjust to different things, and you can see it, and you'll even be more pronounced this year because there's so many new elements to the offensive game. Whether you want to talk about the pistol, that formation, or you want to talk about the read option. This year it's going to be the fast-paced offenses like you see in college now coming into the NFL. And so now what you do is every 3 or 4 weeks just to see how people adjust to it. And then, of course, one of my jobs is to keep track of all the trends, try to pick up the trends as they happen. And that's why it's so valuable in going to a game, because when you see something, then you can immediately go down and ask about it. And particularly, too, classic example was I'm going to New Orleans and Atlanta this week down in New Orleans. I remember going to so many New Orleans-Chicago games and seeing how Chicago, with their cover 2 defense, was able to really bottle up a potent Saints offense. Well, first year they get Jimmy Graham. Next year they get Darren Sproles, and all of a sudden they're carving up the cover 2. And so then you go down and you say, okay, so what's going on? And then you can see just the strategic adjustments of how in building a roster and building answers to questions that you can now develop some answers to get an offense over a defense or a defense over an offense. Those are the things I try to follow.
Okay, so let's look at that. I mean, you're talking about offensive innovation, and one of the things that it seems right now is offenses are constantly coming up with new things. You know, a few years ago it was the Wildcat, and nobody could stop it, and there's the spread option. There's so many different, the pistol formation. These are all different things coming in. Is it going to take time for defensive coordinators to adjust and speed up and catch up with the offenses and where they are right now? Or is that something that you think can actually start to happen this year?
I think in many cases they'll catch up to it a little bit. I mean, the pistol's going to be in there because the pistol is basically a formation that's just now shotgun, and it gives you more ability to run. I mean, it's more of a formation than it is an offense, but what it does, it allows you now for a quarterback and a shotgun to be able to, which would be the pistol, would be able to do a stretch play where normally if he's back in his normal stance, he wouldn't be able to do that. So that's just one strategy that's going to stay. The read option is going to be the one that's going to be interesting, because then what happens if you have a running quarterback who's making that fake or taking the ball at the line of scrimmage, it puts defenses in a man-to-man situation, because that eighth guy, the safety, has to come up to try to at least give a balanced look at how you're going to try to stop that. But then the problem is that it allows the quarterback to be hit. And clearly what you're going to see is more quarterbacks hit at any given chance. And so the more the quarterbacks get hit, the less they're going to do the read option, because that option becomes very painful.
Well, the discussion of the read option and running quarterbacks brings us to a hot point here. There are a lot of fans of this show that are Raiders fans, undeniably, that listen loyally. So I guess, with the news coming out now that all expectations are that Pryor is going to start this Sunday and be the starting quarterback for the Oakland Raiders, with Pryor and Flynn and how different they are as quarterbacks, how difficult with the new collective bargaining agreement and the change in practice schedules, how difficult will it be for the Raiders to actually find a way to utilize the skill sets and essentially cater to both quarterbacks?
Well, it's tough because both are different styles of quarterback, but, you can easily do it. I mean, you can see that Alex Smith was a different type of quarterback than Colin Kaepernick, and they easily made the transition and upgraded the offense once Kaepernick got in there. I mean, you have enough time to practice that you can do things. The problem facing the Raiders is the talent around Pryor and around Matt Flynn. It's just not very good. I mean, that offensive line is terrible. I mean, they've now had injuries that's wiped out the entire left side of the line, and, they're basically just picking guys off the street to come in there and fill it. So I thought after seeing the game on Thursday that it was going to probably be Flynn, because Pryor didn't step up and claim the job. But now I think that you can see there probably is a little bit of an issue with Flynn and the tendonitis in the elbow. That's a problem. So even though he's practicing now, it looks like Pryor is going to take over the starting job. And, he's a running quarterback. His footwork is a lot better than it was last year. His mechanics were a lot better than it was last year. But still, he's a long way off from being a legitimate starter that's going to win games in this league. It's going to take some time, particularly with that roster.
Okay, well, that leads into another thought. I mean, it's pretty noted in interviews reading about you as a person that you're very detail-oriented, that you watch a lot in practices, that you keep spreadsheets of rosters and dollars owed and contracts, and you keep a huge knowledge base of the NFL. So when you're looking at these rosters, how much of what you're seeing on poor teams is a nature versus nurture element? How much of what you're seeing is poor coaching or poor personnel decisions that are leading to franchises that are underperforming?
Yeah, what it comes down to is not a knock on the general manager and it's not a knock on the coach, but when you have to go through a massive transition, how quickly can you fix it? I mean, example being Detroit. I mean, Detroit, for years was drafting a lot of injured players, having, a roster that was one of the oldest in football, and finally everything just fell apart and they went 0-16. Well, in about 4 years, they were able to build it back to a 10-win season with an easy schedule. But in the meantime, you hit rock bottom. And this is where the Raiders, they're hitting rock bottom this year. Their cap, I mean, they've got about, $56 million of dead money under the cap this year.
Right.
That handcuffs them. The guys that they signed were pretty much all one-year type of deals, so that's hard to build anything. And so it's kind of like the perfect storm of disaster that's happened to them, is that they have not hit on draft choices well in the last couple of years, and so there's not a lot of young players that are stepping up and filling the void at starters, and they're grabbing guys off the street that may be backups. And so that's why this year is one that's going to be very difficult. It's just kind of the circumstances of kind of going from one management team to the other.
Well, another hot news story this week is RG3 coming back. He's going to start the Monday night game. All indications is that Shanahan's going to throw him out to the Wolves. I guess looking at it from my angle, when you look at the playoffs in recent years and you look at how low seeds have fared so well, it shows a lack of importance on being the top seed, on getting home field advantage. It makes me wonder what makes more sense if you're sitting there and you're the GM and you're playing RG3. What makes more sense? Is it more beneficial to bring him out right out of the gates and try and win some games? Or would it be better to ease him into this whole thing so that they have what they need from him at the end of the season?
I would think it would be more important to ease him in, because what you don't want to do is have him rush so much that he's going to complicate and get another injury in the knee. You don't want that to happen. And so I would have to think that you want to try to use more 3- and 5-step drops, more pocket passes. Occasionally you have to try to run the ball because you've got to try to at least get defenses not to be sitting back in the zone and trying to make it difficult for him. But to have him do what he was doing last year, coming off a knee, and then also realize he's not done anything to adjust to the speed of the game since he got injured last year, and that's a tough transition. And so I would start him out slow and try to build up. If you really go through the quarterbacks that have come off the knee injuries, most of them have been pocket passers. It's Carson Palmer and Tom Brady and guys like that, and they were able to at least kind of go slow because they're not really running around too much. And they're, the fear that a Tom Brady is going to have, as did Carson Palmer, is having guys around your feet. And so the best thing that I think RG3 can do is just stand back there and get rid of the ball quickly.
Well, right now it seems like you can't really talk about RG3 without Shanahan coming up. That segues us into coaches. Every year when the season starts, there's a few coaches that you just know are on the hot seat going in. Is there anyone you're hearing has to win right out of the gates to keep their job?
Oh, yeah, no question. There's about 5 or 6. And they're pretty predictable to see. Rex Ryan's in a difficult situation with the Jets. Mike Munchak is in a difficult situation with the Tennessee Titans. And, any time the owner goes and gives you extra money to go and spend, and, the Titans in unrestricted free agency invested more than $100 million in contracts, that puts you on the hot seat because now you've got to try to improve. So you can see that, you got that on the hot seat. In Dallas, Jason Garrett's on the hot seat. In Oakland, I think Dennis Allen is on the hot seat because, how many, if this team is going to be, say, 2 and 3 wins, then you've got definite problems there. Ron Rivera in Carolina is on the hot seat. Every year you're going to have 6 to 8 coaches that are on the hot seat, and if you don't win and you're out of the playoffs for a couple of years, it's not good.
Well, the flip side of the hot seat, part of what makes the NFL great is that every year there's a team or two that pops out of nowhere that just seems to rise to the occasion and become a household name overnight. Now, given the amount of practices you get to see, the amount of training camps you get to go to, the things that you're privy to knowledge-wise, who do you think is going to pop up and really surprise us this year?
Well, the easy teams to spot that are going to improve are going to be more in the AFC because there's more ability to move up because there's so many bad teams at the bottom of the AFC that any team that grabs those teams and have them on the schedule can try to improve. And when I say the bad teams, it's the Oaklands, the Jacksonvilles, the Buffaloes, the New York Jets. If you have a combination where you're playing a lot of games against those teams, you're going to benefit. So that's why, you look at Miami and Tennessee and Kansas City as 3 teams are going to improve, but also, they're expected. We kind of figured those out. The 2 that I think you can look at as surprises would be St. Louis and Arizona because they're in a very difficult conference and a very difficult division. But St. Louis has one of the youngest rosters in the league, and because of that youth and the talent that they're acquiring and the fact that they have another first-round pick in addition to the first-round pick next year, they are really getting good fast. And if they can, get like a situation like last year where they have a Seattle-Green Bay game where you get a Hail Mary or a Fail Mary pass that gives you some momentum, boom, they could hit it this year. If not, they'll hit it next year. Arizona's going to improve dramatically because now you've got Bruce Arians calling plays for Carson Palmer, and he's going to throw for 4,000 yards. Anytime you have a 4,000-yard throw or Larry Fitzgerald catching passes, you're going to improve in victory. So those 2 teams, I think, nobody's really talking about, but those 2 teams have a chance to really hit it.
All right. Well, you've mentioned Munchak, you've mentioned Fisher. We are obviously in Nashville here, so we're going to leave you, John, with the Titans question. When you look at the state of the franchise now versus the state of where the Rams are, and you look at Munchak and Fisher and where they've both gone directionally, do you think the Titans now look at that coaching change as a mistake?
No, I don't think so, because remember, you can only stay so long in one place. I think you see it with Andy Reid, you see it with Jeff Fisher, and listen, Jeff Fisher, if I was starting a franchise, he would be the guy that I would hire more than just about anybody else. You can talk about Bill Belichick being maybe one of the best coaches of this year, but what I like about Jeff is that he's still got that young thought, he's still got that player thought, and he knows how to get into the heads of the players and get the maximum production out of them. But also, too, I think you can see things were starting to wear down. And as great a coach as he is, he'd been there for a long time, and sometimes, your voice doesn't carry as well in that locker room. Andy Reid found that out in a very painful way last year. So it was just kind of time for Jeff to kind of move on, and you can see he's recharged, he's re-energized, he's building a great franchise with the Rams, and now it's a matter of Mike Munchak taking this roster and getting it to a level where I think you can see it's going to be a better team. I mean, look at the fact that they've added two very powerful guards, and they're going to be able to run the ball. The key to the whole season, though, is how Jake Locker's going to do and whether Jake can take this team back over the top.
Well, and like you said earlier, with a better team comes heightened expectations. So we'll see how Munchak delivers going into this season. John, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. We truly appreciate it. If you don't follow him, you should. He's at Clayton ESPN. He's Pro Football Hall of Fame writer John Clayton. Thanks for coming on the Jason Fitz Show, brought to you by LittleTeammates.com, John.
Hey, thank you.
That's the first of what will be several national media guests joining us this season on the Jason Fitz Show. Appreciate you tuning in. After these messages, we'll be right back.
My neighbor's dog wouldn't stop shitting in my yard. I asked him 1,000,000 times to stop shitting in my yard, and they just laughed. I kept trying and trying to stop them. They even suggested I eat shit, which I did out of respect, but they still keep going. I called animal control, but they couldn't even make it stop. Finally, I called Weekend Hit 'em and Hard. I can't believe, but the next day the neighbors left town. I haven't had to deal with any dog since. Thanks, Johnny.
There's no need for anyone to ever put up with any shit. This is Johnny Weekend, and we can hit him and hard. Always remember, when the courts aren't giving you justice, there's only one firm that will find creative solutions to your problems. We can hit him and hard. We give him a nudge when the courts won't budge.
When you decide you want to do a show like this, sometimes you have to say things that might not be popular. They might be a little crass. It might be the inappropriate thing, and I'm about to say that. Can I just ask anybody why ESPN is talking about Aaron Hernandez? I do not care who he did or didn't kill, has no interest in my life. All I care about as a football fan is what impact that has to the active 53 players on the roster of the New England Patriots. And I know I'm not alone. Now, CNN can cover that trial all day long, and if I want news, I'll go watch news. But if you know me, you know that the only news I usually watch is ESPN news. There's a reason I don't care about the courtroom drama. What I care about is who is going to catch balls, who's going to block, who's going to play. The same thing with Tim Tebow. My God, the man's not even on an active NFL roster, and he's still an ESPN story? Why? Why? Why was he an ESPN story when he was fighting for a third string gig? Let me tell you something. This is a stark reality people don't have the balls to admit. NFL fans care about winning and losing, and that is it. I've railed on it on this show before. We don't care about player safety. I don't care about concussions. All I care about is what penalty that has to the way it changes the game and how it's played today, right now. That's what I care about. I don't care about a settlement for Jim McMahon. Sure, I loved watching Jim McMahon as a kid. I don't care about his health right now. I care about whether or not the Bears are winning right now. And I know I'm not alone. Man, I know it's not the nice thing to say, but can't somebody say it out loud? I mean, these sports networks are spending all of their time covering these things because they feel like they have to, but the reality is, if it does not affect the final outcome of the game, the average fan just doesn't care. Back me up on this. Hit me up. Facebook, come on. There's got to be an opinion on this. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm in the minority, but I don't think so. You let me know. In the meantime, the one thing I am sure of is on this show, 3 days a week, we are not going to talk about anything that doesn't affect what's happening on the field. Now, you can give me your argument all day long about Pop Warner, the future of the game, our kids going to play football. Okay, that's fine. I think you've completely lost touch, though, if you really believe that some kid that sits there and watches the NFL every Sunday isn't going to find a way to play football on Monday, even if his parents don't want him to. That is another stark reality. They have created superstar athletes, and because these guys look larger than life, and because the teams are larger than life, and because they built this huge multi-billion-dollar business that just runs our television network, 365 days a year, it's what's in people's minds. I don't think the safety is going to make a difference. You can tell your kid not to play football till the cows come home. It's not going to change their desire to go out there and be athletic superstars. It's fun. It's what they want to do. So don't give me that line. In the meantime, what I know here is that unless it's changing the outcome of the final score, unless it's changing who's playing well, unless it's changing who's actually on the field, don't waste my time with it. I don't care. Shouldn't it at least be pointed out that Rolling Stone has just been run ragged? They have been railed for going with an Aaron Hernandez story because it's not music related. Well, guess what, guys? It's not sports related either. It's life related. So ESPN shouldn't be talking about it either. But no, we want to rail Rolling Stone for covering something outside their jurisdiction. Well, just because he's a football player doesn't mean that I give a damn whether or not he pulled a gun out on somebody. So as always, we're going to end today with a little bit of a rant. I know Johnny Manziel isn't the nicest guy. If you listen to the show regularly, you know that I try not to harp on the same thing that all the national media outlets are talking about week in and week out. I really make an effort not to, but I felt like I had to chime in on Johnny Manziel just because I feel like I've seen it before. I feel like we all have seen it before. He's J.D. McCoy, all right? If you ever watch Friday Night Lights, he's J.D. McCoy. He's the spoiled rich kid quarterback that you know is really good, and you just find yourself rooting against him. It feels like he's got the whole world at his hands. Frankly, so what? He makes a gesture for an autograph after a touchdown? I mean, isn't the bigger deal that he came in and produced? And everyone's going to forget about this entire scandal. I've railed several times on this show about why I believe that these athletes should be paid. That's a topic for another time, maybe even for Friday. But above and beyond all things, so what? The kid sold his autograph. And he gets suspended a half and he comes in and he's cocky. He's J.D. McCoy. Of course he's cocky. So, Johnny Manziel, I say you go out there and you be cocky while you can, because right now you've got the whole world. Everybody thinks you're a rock star, and until you have the chance to prove otherwise, you will be. Live it up, son. You deserve it. All right, y'all, do not forget, hit me up, jasonfitz.com. Follow me on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter. Hit me all the social media places. And now we've got a Friday show. So Friday afternoon, when you're wasting the end of your day, come here. We're going to talk some college football. We've got Chad Withrow from 104.5 The Zone coming on. He's going to talk a little vol action. Jeff Lockridge from the Tennesseans is going to come on and talk Vandy. We're going to have a point spread feature. We got a coach coming on. I mean, there's a lot of cool things happening on Friday. So I will see you in 2 short days. You're listening to the Jason Fitz Show, brought to you by Little Teammates, LILteammates.com. See you in a couple days.